Hi Joe.
Hey Rebecca.
Good to see you again
Yeah.
for IRiQ Talking IR.
Yes, July edition.
July edition, which means it's the annual wage review edition. 1 July this year, new rates came into play as a consequence of the Fair Work Commission's annual wage review that took place. Now, as a recap, the Fair Work Commission undertakes that review annually to review the minimum wage and the lowest paid award classification. Under the Fair Work Act, there's a few considerations that need to be before the Fair Work Commission. One is the needs of the low paid. The other is relative living standards and cost of living pressures, inflation and economic conditions, productivity, employment and business competitiveness, and gender pay equity and the elimination of gender-based undervaluation. Seems to me there was a big focus on the relative living standards and cost of living pressures. Talk us through the wage decision and what the figures look like.
Well, there's no doubt that the cost of living is a very big issue. I think what we've also seen this year with oil prices resulting from some delicate situations occurring in the Middle East, all of these factors were taken into account by the Fair Work Commission's expert panel, which is chaired by President Adam Hatcher. In their decision when they released it, and you won't be surprised to know I was in front of my laptop watching it all eagerly, the Commission considered all of those factors. Interestingly, what the President indicated was that an increase was warranted, but there was a need to balance it between the cost of doing business and business affordability, recognising all those factors that I've just mentioned. So the increase, which took effect from the first full pay period on or after the 1st of July, was 4.75% to all modern awards. However, for classifications equal to the traditional C13, C14 rates, the increase was actually 6%. Now, the reason that was higher is, I guess, a proposal that the Commission's had for a couple of years to move away from the C14 and the C13 rates of pay, and also combined with the national minimum wage increase that took effect as well, which was in effect a 6% increase. So that was taking into account the needs of the low paid. Mind you, the national minimum wage is also the minimum for us all. Whether we're covered by an award or not, it applies. So we have, to some extent, seen a two-tier increase, 6%, and then for modern award rate higher than C13, it's a 4.75% increase.
Yeah. So that all sounds pretty complicated. How do employers manage understanding what this means for them, and what do they need to do?
The first thing an employer needs to be doing is understanding the decision. If they haven't come to terms with it, it's time to get your skates on. To understand what that means and start implementing it. Now, for some businesses that pay on a monthly basis or a fortnightly basis, the increase might only be coming into effect soon because it's the first full pay period on or after the 1st of July. If you've already had a couple of pay periods since that date and you haven't applied the increases, then you will need to look at back pay. That's a non-negotiable. And then that has a flow-on implication for superannuation because we've also seen the new payday super come into place. Other things we always recommend, annual wage review is a time to make sure your employment contracts are up to date. They reflect what they need to reflect. Classifications are being properly applied. Interestingly, classifications are by far the more common reason for people to commence underpayment action because they don't understand their classification and that they perhaps fit where they do. And miscommunication. Everything's good until it's not. So there are some practical steps that employers can take. What we did actually do in the June edition of our newsletter was prepare a checklist that was contained in the newsletter, practical step by step what you can do as an employer. We will also include it in the July edition.
Great.
Readily available
Yep.
check boxes, so employers can go through and basically check the box and say, have I done that? Do I need to do this? Am I ready to go?
Yeah, great. So it's really a shortcut cheat sheet to compliance, which is so critical from a wage compliance point of view because of the significant penalties that arise there. And also a greater awareness, I think, too, in the community generally. There's been a lot of media about the annual wage review, so I think it'd be fair to say that most employees know about the wage review or have heard about the wage review and believe that they're due a pay rise. So I imagine employees will be looking for this as well. So that communication with employees that you mentioned is going to be important here. You mentioned it's a good time to review contracts. And I guess it's interesting to understand the relationship between contracts and minimum wages and entitlements. What do you think is the most important thing about having a contract when it comes to wage compliance?
Well, contracts confirm the understanding of the terms and conditions. Contracts can set out classifications, as I mentioned earlier. They're important for ensuring the correct wages are being paid. But if you, for example, pay over an award amount and that over award amount is meant to compensate for certain conditions, this increase could impact on the value of those conditions. So, for example, if rate of pay incorporates the value of annual leave loading, because the hourly rate's going up, so too will the value of the annual leave loading. So there will need to be a check to make sure whatever you're paying, whether it's a simple over award amount on your hourly rate, whether it's in line with the annualised wage arrangements in a relevant award, or whether it's a salary, you need to make sure it's still sufficient to cover what it was designed to cover, so that the employee remains in receipt of what they would have got had the award applied.
Exactly, and offset provisions help there too, but absolutely all good reasons to grab hold of that checklist.
Yes.
And do some thinking around how your business is complying with all of the obligations, but also implementing the changes.
And look, we've been talking to clients already who have rung just to sense check what the value of the wages will be, to sense check how it applies in their business. So legal advice is really beneficial for that perspective, because we can talk to you about the practicalities, we can talk about how what you do will protect you moving forward, and that's the biggest benefit for advice, looking at ways that you can continue to protect yourself as an employer and a business operator.
Absolutely. All right, that's great. Thanks, Jo.
Thanks, Rebecca.